Welcome, everyone. Dr. Josh Long here with a AME Podcast, my quest to talk to folks who are playing music beyond the classroom. Yeah, lifelong learning and music education, a way for me to see what folks are doing and continuing playing their instrument or continue actively involved with the music community. We're actually sponsored by Art and Music Emporium, serving artistic excellence. I do things such as fix instruments. We also have some performing initiatives going on, such as the annual Community Band by the Sea, which happens down in Wildwood, New Jersey, late July. And we also have done things such as the Bethlehem Steel Company Legacy Band, which we just did a performance in 2024. And we're in the midst of Tuba Christmases right now. So we're recording this in December. We still have one left on Christmas Eve. So do check us out at www.artmusicemporium.com. We're also on Facebook, as well as if you're watching this on YouTube. Please subscribe to our channel. And we also have a Patreon account. And again, all proceeds go to folks who are just interested in lifelong learning and music education. I'm so excited about my next guest. Is a friend of mine, also a teacher, a euphonium teacher, who really helped me out when I was going through what I say masters of music education and trying to learn more about my instrument. He's a buffet euphonium player. I know that. I know he also spends a lot of time in the brass band world and the Salvation Army and the staff band. And I know he does quite a bit for a lot of people in the low brass and euphonium world. So I'm so excited to talk to him about meaningful music making because I think that's very important. So please welcome Aaron VanderWeele. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing good, Josh. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to reconnect with you.
Yeah, same here. Well, hey, I thought just a little bit. I usually ask this just in the beginning. You don't have to give me a huge, bio of what you're doing, but I was just interested. I'm really interested in how you got into music, just because I
Sure.
think we always start there, just because, there was that interest, and you're still doing it today. So I
Yeah,
thought spend a little time with that, and if you can remember, what kind of pulled you in that direction.
sure. Yeah. So my family and I are part of the Salvation Army. I was born into the Salvation Army as my church. A lot of people in the United States don't realize that the Salvation Army is a church first and foremost. So that was my family church, and I'm about a fifth generation Salvationist. And in the Salvation Army, music is a huge part of what we do, and particularly the brass band. And while that has kind of changed a little bit over the years, and you don't see quite as many of them as you used to, there was a strong representation of that in my own family and my family history as brass players and musicians, people who sing in the choir, but also participate in the band. And then, so I was kind of born into that tradition, if you will. And in our church, we had a junior brass band. So kind of all the kids, especially if your parents were in the band and in the choir, you were kind of going into the traditional music kind of training.
Hmm.
And so it started out, they stuck a cornet in my hand when I was 7 years old, and I hated it. I didn't really pay any attention to it whatsoever. I kind of went along with kind of the junior band kind of teaching, and I
Yeah.
participated, but I was mostly there to play with my friends and have a good time with my brother. And so was involved in that. And then, basically, kind of continued along until I was about 13 and, got bigger and, had some braces that were put on me. And at the same exact time, some people that were in our church moved away and they stopped playing euphonium and baritone in our junior brass band. So they
Mhm.
asked me if I would be okay to switch. It made sense because I had the braces and it was bigger and all that kind of stuff. And now there was a need. And so that's where I switched at 13 to euphonium. And at the same, around about the same time, there was a gentleman from England who came to be our music director in the Salvation Army. And he was a lovely euphonium player, and something clicked, and that captivated my interest. And started then at that point in time, around 13, 14, practicing a bit more. I didn't really take lessons, but I would say that the switch was kind of turned on in terms of starting to become aware of kind of what the instrument could sound like, and it captivated my imagination. And one thing led to another, and I kind of started my. I didn't have any idea at the time. I didn't do it intentionally. This was a very organic kind of like entrance into music
Yeah.
making through my church. So that's kind of how I got started.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't understand that still exists in the Salvation Army band. I mean, it's kind of the only time I ever see it, around Christmas time, right? You always see the Salvation Army, instrumentalist brass band playing outside, right?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
it's really interested to hear that, you kind of played through your church and you're still playing today. And I
Yes.
guess my question is, you made that comment about clicking, something clicked. Do you remember what clicked to move you into the Euphonium
Very
world?
much so. Yeah. So it was really my mentor, Chris Mallett. And at my church, I was very, very fortunate. We had three kind of larger than life figures in Salvation Army music who all happened to be going to the same church. And I was lucky enough that my parents chose that church for me. And they were basically like an extension of my family. But really, I would say that the driver in that was this guy, Chris Mallett, who was he was more than a mentor. He was a friend who basically took great interest in so many of the young people in the Salvation Army in Los Angeles, because I grew up in LA.
Mhm.
Some people don't know that because I've been on the East Coast for so long. But he was just a lovely example of great euphonium playing, and just something clicked about that sound that it captured my imagination. So I went into what they call the adult band, the senior band, and I just sat down the row from him and just listened. And as I listened more, and he would play solos, I wanted to try, and I never had taken it seriously at all, and had never had any training, but just kind of something kind of happened, and I can't really explain, but it was just a very natural thing. And from about the age of 14, I had started to have some serious ability, and the progression happened pretty quickly. And with kind of Chris's kind of like steering, it wasn't formal lessons, it wasn't weekly lessons like what I give to private studio or to students
Mhm.
at Rutgers now. It was much more an organic, no pressure, just for the pure enjoyment of music making and church music making, particularly, which is a huge emphasis in my family.
Yeah.
And so that kind of captured that, and I was like, well, how come I don't sound like that? And I just started to kind of latch on to that. And I think another thing that has kind of shaped my own teaching is
Yeah.
that it was more than just like playing. He
Mhm.
wasn't a person that just kind of showed me how to play well, but he took interest in my life,
Mhm.
relationships, how I was doing in school, my family. Like I say, he was an
Mhm.
extension of my family. And I've tried to adopt a similar type of principle where the people that I'm working with, I take it very seriously as a mentor, to be there as a counselor, a listening ear, a person to kind of help, keep accountable to people. So, hey, are you kind of doing what you want to do to kind of move in the direction you want to move? Are you taking the steps necessary? That was the kind of stuff that Chris did to me, but also related to me on sports, on girls, on,
Mhm.
you name it, just the whole 360-degree view of Aaron VanderWeele when I was growing up. He had an interest in that. And because of that, it wasn't like this kind of teacher that I felt like I was disappointing or anything like that, or
Mhm.
having my hand slapped on a ruler or anything like that. It was just for love of music, and
Mhm.
it started to it just worked, and it took off. And before I knew it, I was playing, at a high level as a young person. And so I just say that it's a totally God given ability. And I've been fortunate to use it and kind of try and give back to other people in a similar fashion.
Yeah, definitely. And I know when you're sitting there telling about the mentor thing, there's been many times when I remember when I was going through my degrees and you were helping me, you were always calling me and checking in on me. And that's
Yes.
great because I think that's like, you know, I, I talk about this quite a bit. It's so much more than just playing the horn, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's
Yeah.
so much more to it. And I think that's like what I've been kind of poking at with these podcasts because I think a lot of people just think, the radio music, you turn it up, you turn it down, you turn it off, and that's all it
Hmm.
is. And it's not
Yeah.
that when you're performing, right?
No, it's right. Exactly. It's not. And it's yeah, and like kind of like long form conversations like this where you can get to the
Mhm.
heart of something, and people can learn more about it rather than like canned interviews where kind of like something that's just like in print that just gives you just a snippet of that person. You can see more of kind of what's going on, with people. But yeah, absolutely. Like that's such a huge part of it is just to meet people where they are. Because there's all sorts of things that affect us as musicians that because we're humans, first and
Yep.
foremost. And so meeting people where they are and having appreciation and getting to know them, I think you can really kind of get so much more out of that and that kind of relationship. And if you're kind of teaching someone, I think it's such a huge part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing I kind of wanted to go back, I wanted to talk just really quickly. You mentioned about the sound, that you wanted to sound like that. And I know, and
Yeah.
I'm going to know because I know you because you shared this with me. I remember you always talking about how you develop your sound and how you get your sound to sound where you want it to be. And I remember we were telling me that, you'd listen to recordings of yourself or you'd
Yeah.
listen around and how you develop
Yeah.
that. So I guess one interest I had was what was the motivation? With that to get your sound to sound where it is today, because I know you're amazing on euphonium,
Well,
so
thank you. Yeah. I think it was just, Chris opened my eyes, to kind of a new way of playing. And that was a sound in, 19, what would it be, 80s, late 80s, early
Mhm.
nine, well, late 80s, I guess is where it started to form. I would say to you that at that time there wasn't anyone around me that sounded like that. So it was different. That sound captured my interest in my imagination, and it was just different. And it was, the use of vibrato, the use of line and phrase and shape and all that kind of stuff. Because we had some nice brass players around, but I didn't know any that kind of on euphonium at that point in time. And it just so happened that that was the instrument that I played. I mean,
Mhm.
would I have had that same interest if I was a cornet player still, and then I listened to this euphonium player and I wanted to switch? Probably not. My attention wasn't kind of tapped in there. But because I had just made the switch, and here was this new guy that was playing my instrument, it was just a direct kind of comparison. And he was going to my church. So it wasn't like I was seeing him kind of on a 6 month basis. I was seeing him on a weekly basis.
Okay.
So listening to him, he would have opportunities as this great musician to be featured. And so I would hear him playing and I would hear the reaction that the crowd was giving him. And that just captured my interest in a very organic way that was very pure.
Mhm.
And, and so I wanted to kind of listen to that as much as possible. If he was playing, I was listening. And then that spurred on. He would tell me about other really great euphonium
Right.
players, or I would become aware of them first in the Salvation Army and then outside the Salvation Army. And that's really where, I can remember kind of asking my parents to order, 6, 7 CDs from the top brass bands in the world. And at the time, they would come from this company in England and they would take, a month or so to get to
Mhm.
California or whatever. I don't know what the deal was. But I would wait for them with bated breath and just like devour them when they arrived. And in days of just listening, like I can remember distinctly listening to the Childs Brothers on my school bus going from, you know, like about a mile from the ocean into East LA where I was going to school because my parents sent me to this magnet school in East LA. And I can remember being on a bus at 6:30 in the morning listening to the Childs Brothers. What other kid do you know at 16 years old that's listening to the Childs Brothers on some bus in LA that's going into East LA? It's like that's not happening, right?
Mhm.
But it captured that attention and it captured that and now it's like so commonplace you can pick up the euphonium player and just tap into YouTube or Spotify or what have you, you know, and you can be inspired. But I remember just devouring these recordings as they would come through, and not just solo CDs, but like in the band setting as well, and just being like, "Wow, listen to what that voice and that ensemble does for this group," And so it just captivated my attention and my energy, and I wanted to get better. And as I practiced more, I got better, and it exponentially, and it was very, very quick. Like I can remember within like 2 years or like a year and a half being like participating in solo competitions, having the courage to kind of go do that, and that going well, and that leading to other opportunities, and it just spiraled into something that became a lot of fun, and it didn't seem like work. It was just fun, and it was just to participate because my friends at the time they were also participating in similar type groups. So it was just kind of what we did at the time.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, this is one thing I wanted to bring up, and I think I know the direction that you go with this comment, but we look at competitions, for example. We
Yeah,
look at those competitions, or there is euphonium competitions. There's
yeah,
just like there's sports competitions, right? And we always look at that, and I've always felt that it's much more to making music than just those competitions. And I've known folks that I've seen that attitude of like, oh, I want to win, I want to win, I want to win because it's that competition feeling. But for you, I feel like it's a little bit more because you make comments of fun, you make fun of or not make fun, but you make comments of like how the sound is and what you wanted to do and all of those things. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
competitions are bad. They are very useful. That's not what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to me because it seems like you wanted a certain sound, you wanted a certain music making skill that you wanted to acquire, and that's what your motivation was, and it wasn't about anything else. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it really wasn't. Although I am a very competitive person, I played
Mhm.
sports competitively growing up.
Sure.
And at first, I think there was a sense of wanting to do well.
Hmm.
And the metric was if you placed first, then that was like a sign of doing really well. And I can remember, at a young age, placing first in a smaller competition within the Salvation Army, not outside the Salvation Army. So I wasn't participating like in all state. I did not participate in high school music growing up.
Hmm.
And that was an option for me, but I didn't
Yeah.
have any interest in that. So I grew up as a totally treble clef player, as a euphonium player, because that was what the brass band kind of used, and
Right.
that's what I had grown up on. But you know, uh, when I participated in this small solo competition and won it, I think that was like that felt really good. And so
Sure.
I'd be lying if I said that at the time as a competitive, 15, 16-year old that I
Yeah.
wasn't trying to place first. I mean, and I had a couple friends at the same age who were really good and who had been participating and winning regularly in the same solo competitions. And now I was kind of coming on and kind of
Yeah.
like trying to play also. And I was competing against my friends, but it wasn't
Yep.
in a malicious way. It was wanting to do well.
Yeah.
And kind of because my friends, my peer group, they were all doing well. So I kind of wanted to join them in that. And so when I did win, it was a great feeling. But there have been plenty of things that I've tried to win at and I don't. So, you know, it's just part of the grind, you know.
Yeah, we're all that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's what
I,
it is.
I feel sometimes if we don't struggle, then it's not going to
Oh
be
yeah.
meaningful, you
That's
know.
right. You learn a lot more when things don't go your way.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just interesting because what I'm kind of like thinking about is as you move forward. I mean, goodness gracious, you move to the East Coast. I know you're in the in the band and Salvation Army bands and different things, and you've made a life over here, and you still have this connection to making music still today. I mean, it's still your when
Yeah.
and I'll be honest, I know you're high up there. I mean, if we do a search for euphonium, you're going to come up, and it's just amazing to see that. And I guess like, you know, what still drives you today? As far as, still challenging or motivating you, if that makes sense.
I Yeah, no, it does. I am envious of people whose entire career is just music. I feel that I could be a lot better player if I had the time that some of my
Sure.
colleagues have, that some people who are full-time professors, perhaps on euphonium and have other, areas that they kind of speak into at the university or something like that. And I feel that very easily I could be at that level if I had all my time just to kind of dedicate to that. So I feel like that there's a lot of work left undone on my instrument, and I do the very best that I can,
Hmm.
which I try to be at a very high level. I am competitive with myself first and foremost, and I think
Hmm.
that drives me
Sure.
because I feel like I can scratch that itch, and I'm still nowhere near where I think I can be.
Hmm.
And the more time I put into that, I see results, just like, students that I teach nowadays, whether they're 7 years old, 17 or 70, it's just, when you put time into it, you see the results. And I want it to be good. I feel I don't like sucking on the
Hmm.
instrument.
Sure.
And that's a terrible taste. Like if I play poorly, I hate that taste.
Hmm.
So I don't like to have negative experiences on my instrument. So that motivates me, but also just the collegiate aspect of it and just making music for the pure love and enjoyment of making music.
Hmm.
I also am very fortunate to work with some exceptional students and they, them looking to me to provide them answers drives me to work hard on my instrument and to always have answers or suggestions in terms of what they can do to unlock the door to the next level of their playing. And with that, I have to be on top of their music. So I can't coach somebody effectively if I can't play their music effectively.
Mhm.
And I've had students at Rutgers from undergrads to doctoral students, and I mean, I recently had a student who was playing the Kevin Day concerto. Well, in order for me to coach her on that, I had to be able to play that myself and understand that music, some of the most complex music that exists for our instrument.
Mhm.
Um, Sam, name your top concerto, or like an audition that somebody's trying to do. I feel if somebody is coming to me, there's so many teachers that they could choose from, that if somebody is investing that time and that money in me, then I have to be at the level to give back to them. So I don't take it lightly when someone wants to study with me. And it's a real sense of need for me
Mhm.
just to kind of be prepared
Sure.
so that I have that. So both of those kind of things together, both me individually and then me as a teacher, what I can give back. I think, I'm not here talking to you if people didn't invest in me when I was a kid,
Right.
and not for any money. Chris never got paid a cent from my parents or me. He did it because he loved me and he loved music,
Mhm.
and he loved his church as well, giving back. And there's been that's one case. There's been a lot of people that have kind of helped to shape me. So I believe strongly in paying it forward, um, and it's not a transactional kind of thing where you have to pay me or something like that. I genuinely love to see people excel on their instrument.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And that's great. I mean, the pay it forward and the just to help people. I mean, that's like, and it's so funny because I know we've had this conversation before, and don't take us the wrong way. It's like you have such a great teacher educator side of things. And I know I always say this to you. I know you do other things that you like, and so do I.
hmm
As I was
yeah,
sharing, I do
yeah,
quite a bit of stuff in research, right? But it's
yeah.
like, it's that side of education that really pulls forward. And I think that's what's amazing, and makes your
Mhm.
approach that way because it's about giving back and making people play and sound
Right.
great,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, anybody who teaches lessons and is given the huge honor of accompany somebody on their journey, and when they invite you into their life to be that kind of role, to fill that role, and you see that switch turn on when they get something that they've been working hard at, or something is unlocked, and you're lucky enough to be part of that process, you can't help but be affected by that and be inspired by that and just totally humbled. And I love that. And it's such a, like I'm talking to you today from my office at our corporate headquarters. This is my day job. It has nothing to do with music. It is business contracts and procurement for the Salvation Army and what we buy, from office products to food, fuel, and everything in between. So it has nothing to do with music. That's where that side of the brain can take over with, when I get to play music, when I get to teach and stuff like that. And that feeds my soul. So I really love that. But it's very intentional on my part to continue participating in that because it shapes me in a way that I really find is kind of completes me a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I wanted to ask you, you said feed your soul, and I'm not by any means saying anything about your day job, but I know all
Yeah.
we get hung up in things that we're doing. Okay, and
hmm hmm
and then you go to music, and I think things change. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, just because, and I'll give you my side of it. I could be teaching all day, reading dissertations, doing things, and I could be in a really poor mood. And when I go to a rehearsal or pick up my horn, everything just changes, and
Yeah.
I see that in you a little bit because
hmm
it feeds you
hmm
in a different way and it makes you,
hmm
approach things different. And of course, I approach everything else differently after that time period. So I was wondering
hmm
if
hmm
you could expand on a little bit about that, maybe if you can describe how it feeds your soul a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I think making music with other people, and no matter what level it's at, but it's just such a thing that I really, really enjoy. I have enjoyed it for a long time. It never feels like work to me. It's just
Mhm.
really something that I do for because I enjoy it. I really love it. And I would say probably the vast majority of people that I play with and have played with really just love it. And if you can get away from all the other nonsense and just go to rehearsal and just have you have a great time with your friends, you know. Um, when I come home, my wife sees me in a great mood. You know, I just like she's like, you know, she'll say something, and I'm like, man, we had a great rehearsal today. I really love playing my instrument. She knows that, right? And it's you can't replace that because it's organic and it's something that you just really do for enjoyment. I mean, because I like to play, but I also like it involves my friends, right? I would say I love being in a rehearsal more than I like practicing on my own. I
Yeah.
just that part of being active with people. And I love my day job too. Like that feeds my soul in a different way because of the work that the Salvation Army does, and you feel part of it because you're changing people's lives, and that feeds my soul in a different way. Art is a little bit different where it comes in and fills in some of those gaps, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm a very expressive player, so it taps into my heart. One of the things I say to my students more is, what are you saying? You know, how are you expressing? You know, through this music, whatever the feeling is or whatever the main message is, how are you doing that? So I kind of tap into that, and that's more of like a sharing thing as well. And I've found that like when you approach music as sharing, it's not, and you're inviting people to enjoy and participate in this experience with you. I think it disarms you as a performer, where it's not about like having to have things be perfect. Because I think as musicians, we get so wrapped up in that something's not perfect. And I've been with so many students that are almost paralyzed, as it were, with the fear of disappointing or not being at a level. But it changes it all when you just invite people to enjoy in the music that you're
Mhm.
that you're making, and you invite them in to enjoy that experience with you. And so I just love how it connects people. I think that in the truest sense of the word, what music was created for was to bring people together.
Mhm.
And I just have such a good time doing that, that it's part of my DNA.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. And by any means, I didn't mean anything, even the day job or like what I said with that, but it just it feeds it
Oh
differently.
no,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's
it
just
does. It
and
does.
it's just like that I was saying, there's something powerful about it, and it's hard to
Yeah.
explain. Just like you said,
Hmm.
we bring people together, we share something together, and it's just it's just fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just
In church too, like how I grew up playing, it was for people in church. You play music because it can open up someone's eyes to, their potential for faith walk, or
Mhm.
for something, for them to experiencing something that's bigger than themselves. And so you come at that in a way that, like, it's not some test. Like, what you're playing is not being graded. It's not going to be something where there's pressure on you to be perfect or whatever. You're participating in a collective time when you're in a church service or anything like that. So I tend to like finding ways that music kind of brings people together like that, and that speaks to people. Um and and even like when you're away from church, when people are doing things, why do people go to the hear the New York Philharmonic? Why do people go to Broadway? It's because they
Mhm.
really enjoy it, because it's something. Why do they pay hundreds of dollars for these tickets? Because they're getting something out of it. It's something that really that they're feeling. So to be part of that is a huge thing, and it's what I love most about music, is connecting people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, very well said. I mean, and it's just amazing, just have that connection. And I don't know, it's something that I think we've always been on the same wavelength about.
Very much so. Yes, very much so.
So, hey, as we're kind of wrapping this podcast up, I wanted just to ask you a little bit, and this is more, you've been very deep with your responses already, but I always tell this to my folks. This is kind of more of a deeper response of thinking of, participation, people being involved with music. As you know, I'm very big in, the community world, getting people to come, getting people to, pick up their instruments again, people
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
make music, people to challenge themselves, all those kind of things. And I know you've been on that role more of as the brass conductor, brass band conductor of those kind of things and how
Hmm.
you're making it meaningful for them. So I was just wondering if
Yeah.
you had any advice that you could provide to anybody, of what motivates them or what could motivate them. I mean, you can't motivate somebody, but what could motivate somebody to come out and play and be involved with these practices of making music?
Yeah, I think, the thing that motivates people and that can motivate people is just creating more touch points to be with other musicians and what they can get from it. Um, it's not about what they give to other people, it's about what they can get out of it themselves and the enjoyment and the collective experience of what's going on. And there are plenty of people, like I recently started working with somebody who is retired and played when he was younger and played a different instrument, and now his chops really aren't really able to sustain kind of what he's wanted to do before with trumpet, and so he picked up euphonium, and he's looking for some guidance on that. And it's a person who is, not a 16-year-old or a person who's entering college or something like that, but this is a person who's retired as an adult, and I find great interest in that. I celebrate that with him, just to say, like, man, I give you so much credit to go back and take lessons and to be actually pursuing this like a student would. And I mean, like, we just started working together, but it's like I really love like his energy for that, and I feed off of that. And I just think that's so cool, because so many people, like, they just have this block and it's up here and it doesn't really exist, but in their mind it exists, and it's like this, it prevents them from actually enjoying music, even though they would love it. It's just that so there's something that gets in the way of that. And I just try to encourage people, get past that, just go experience, make music together. If you like music, you're going to love doing it with somebody else, and to take lessons. If you find a great teacher, somebody that unlocks doors for you, it can be a lot of fun. And then, you can participate and grow in that and get involved with other things. So I just try to encourage people just to be active, and to not be too hard on themselves. And I think it's all about how you couch it for people. I also think that people sometimes, like older folks that are picking music up as a second time, maybe they had a bad experience when they were growing up. Maybe they had a teacher who was not very helpful, or just really mean, or condescending, or made them feel stupid. And that's not them. That's that teacher. That's not. And I try to just encourage them and try and love on them just a little bit, just to be like, meet them where they are and just be like, it's okay. We all got stuff that we're working on. Even the people who think they're the best, trust me, they got stuff they should be working on, and they're not as good. And there's always somebody better. So I just love finding ways to have touch points with musicians and just encourage them to get over their fears or whatever it is that's kind of keeping them away from participating. And any time that I've seen people participate, like I have people at my church that I knew used to play, and I've encouraged them to get back into playing. And some of them have done that, and it's been great. And they're now enjoying it, and they're part of our, fellowship and the fellowship of musicians, and that's a great thing. And like, you were talking about like Princeton Brass Band. Like I just recently resigned from Princeton Brass Band as the music director, and it was such a tough decision. But things in my own professional life and personal life had changed so much since the time that I took over the band, and really felt the need to be so present in terms of everything that was going on with the band, and encouraging people to really take that step and getting back in. And so there's a lot of mixed kind of experience in the ensemble, and just seeing how it grows and being part of that. It's just such an honor to be there with people that are kind of looking to you for that direction. And man, what a great experience that was, and still is. Like, I listened to the band the other night and just love, listening to the band and seeing where they have come from and where they're doing now. And you can't help but just be tickled pink about, all the things that are going on. So it's just, I just love music, and I love connecting with people. And when you approach things from the right mindset, I think it can really open up some doors, and it disarms people in a way that maybe they haven't been used to.
Well, thank you. Yeah, very well said. I mean, and I will say this, I will publicly say this, I'm still working on things. Get out there.
Me too.
That's one thing,
Me
the
too.
words I always hear in my head from you, when I'm like, oh, well, that didn't go well, or why am I doing this? And it's like, because we all are working on things. So, and
Yeah. Yeah.
beyond you said a lot of great things, but it's just, I just wanted to share that with you because,
Yeah.
that's where
Thank
it
you.
makes it meaningful. So, but
Yeah. Thank
well,
you.
hey,
Thank you.
Aaron, thank you so much. I mean, I appreciate you being on this podcast, and I will say, you are quite an inspiration in the euphonium world. I
Thank
know
you.
that
Thank you.
your sound is amazing, and it's always great to catch a concert with you and keep in contact with you because you've always been a great mentor for me. I know that,
Well,
especially in
thank
a
you.
time when I needed it. So, so I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah.
that.
No, I'm happy to, and I'm so happy that we met, and we continue to have a friendship, and it's just, I think that the thing about me is that I just really enjoy meeting people where they are and just kind of being part of that process. And I'd say to anybody watching this, if anybody has any questions about me in particular, I'm very accessible. If anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm certainly happy to develop communication with folks and just kind of help kind of encourage them or kind of meet them where they are. But yeah, just thanks so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and thank you for, giving that greeting out to everybody and, contact
Absolutely.
because, I think that's what a lot of people get worried about. Like, we're all here to help you.
Yeah, yeah. I teach at Rutgers, and we have students that they're serious about music, and it's wonderful, and I love that. But there's other touch points as well, in music as well, and it's been a real joy, to be a part of things and lots of varied ways, whether it's Tuba Christmas, with people that pick up the instrument once a year. And we have a great time when we do that kind of thing. Or if it's people that are rehearsing, at the highest levels of championship brass banding, or in the New York Staff Band where we're working to play concerts, and then recordings and take tours and things like that. And we take it very seriously, no matter where it is. It's just been, yeah, I love it all, and it's a great thing that I like you said before, it feeds your soul. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely, my pleasure.